Hey everybody, it's Gauntlet and welcome back to some more Magic Arena, and today we're going to be playing another premiere draft of Lost Caverns of Ixalan, this time with Alchemy included. These Alchemy cards are going to be one per pack, and they're pretty wild. They've all got some interesting digital-only mechanics in them, and the card quality of the Alchemy cards varies greatly. You have cards like this Shanty here, that doesn't do a whole lot for the mana cost in limited. 2 mana for 2 damage to a creature or planeswalker at instant speed is fine, but you're not going to get the duplicates to make this go insane. So there's pretty high variance with the Alchemy cards, honestly. Some of them are insane mega bombs that are just way better than even the best card in the main set, and then some of them are just really constructed only cards like the Shanty. So these Alchemy draft queues can be pretty high variance and lead to some really bomby, really explosive plays, and some interesting stuff. Definitely shakes up the draft format a bit. So for our pack 1 pick 1, we're just going to be taking a Spring-Loaded Sawblades, a very solid card from the initial set. It's a 2-for-1 being a removal spell and a very solid vehicle later in the game. So it just plays really, really well, and I'm a big fan of the card. Again, our Alchemy card in that pack was just not that great when you can't have a bunch of multiples, and since there's only one Alchemy card in each pack, you're not really going to get a bunch of multiples of that removal spell. This Alchemy card, let's see, target opponent reveals each non-land card in their hand with mana value 4 or less. Choose a card revealed this way, or a card in their graveyard and exile it. So 2 mana to get rid of 1 card in their hand. I mean, this is fine. It's only 1 mana if you weren't the starting player, which is cute and all, but this is not insane. One card that is insane, though, is Spyglass Siren. Just a lot of value for only 1 mana, a 1 mana 1/1 flyer, and a map token for value. So 2 permanents off of 1 spell for cards that care about that, an artifact for cards that care about that, a pirate, a flyer. It just does a bunch of great stuff. So pretty standard start to a draft. You're going to see a lot of pack 1 pick 1 into pack 1 pick 2 drafts that are like this, of Sawblades into Siren in the format. So pretty standard stuff. None of our Alchemy cards were particularly interesting to shake things up quite yet. But for pick 3, we've got a really powerful uncommon, the Geological Appraiser. It is again not an Alchemy card, but it's a sweet card from the initial format, a 2-for-1 when you cast it, no matter what, at very worst drawing you a card off of the Discover if it hits like a combat trick that you can't cast at the time. But at best, it's really good where it hits another creature and just floods your board super quickly. So big fan of the Appraiser. We will take that out of this one. Pick number 4, again, these Alchemy cards just vanished. They are already gone, but we've got some great options out of the initial Lost Caverns of Ixalan set, like Miner's Guidewing, which is great for a blue-white flyers deck, or just really any deck. It's just a lot of value for the 1 mana, very similar to the Spyglass Siren. There's also a Duskrose Reliquary here, which is pretty decent removal. You do have to sack an artifact or creature, so ideally you have some token production in your deck, stuff that makes 1/1 tokens or map tokens or treasure tokens, but exiling any artifact or creature is pretty great for just 1 mana, so Reliquary or Guidewing, very easily the options here. Kind of like going a little controlling with a Sawblades into a Reliquary here. We'll see how that plays out for us. Pick number 5, again, no Alchemy cards, and the pack's relatively weak. I do like Plundering Pirate for the decks that care about putting multiple permanents on the board off of just 1 spell. And red-white is definitely an archetype that would do that. And our Duskrose Reliquary is a card that's pretty good for that archetype. Our Sawblades is pretty solid there too, since it can be a little more mid-rangey if you want it to be. Yeah, discovering into a Plundering Pirate off of an Appraiser is really good. I'll take the Plundering Pirate here. Pretty happy with that. Pick number 6, the Malamet Warscribe is fine at the top end of your curve if you have a bunch of cheap creatures, especially some creatures that spit out multiple off of 1 card, like the Ultec Cloud Guard, a 4 mana 3/2 flyer that also spits out a 1/1 gnome alongside it. So I like the Warscribe a lot. The River Herald Guide's pretty decent value out of green. It's kind of it. Everything else is pretty filler. Primordial Gnar, Envoy of Okanekahau. I'll just take the Warscribe here. Moving on to pick number 7. And pick 7, we get a Dynatomaton for the 4 mana slot on the curve, or a Pathfinding Axe Draw, which is a really solid value play. There's also Deep Cavern Bat, which is one of the best spells in black in the format. One of the best uncommons. Now, it is the best card in like a really weak color overall. So don't think I'd take it super early, but getting it pick 7, if you're like the only black drafter, black is still perfectly playable. I think Deep Cavern Bat is enough better than the Axtron, the Dynatomaton to take it here. It just rips your opponent's best removal spell out of their hands, so you can just keep draining them out of the game with this. Really hard to race against a flying lifelinking card, especially when you have ways to potentially buff it. I think the Bat is just a really good card. So I'll speculate in that direction here. Pick 8, all these cards are pretty bad. Benthasar and Cave-In are fun if you can get enough caves, but they're pretty inconsistent, in that you can't always do that. I do think they're the potential highest upside cards, though, so I'll take a Cave-In here. Pick number 9. I like the Armored Kin color a lot in green-red dinos. Everything else is super filler, but Cosmium Blast might be the pick just because we're so much deeper into white. We've got 0 green cards right now. I'll just take the filler white removal spell. Skullcap Snail's another pretty solid black card, and it's not competing with much. Monster Sword's a very filler card for the top end of your curve. Might be ending up in black-white here, which is awkward because that is probably my least favorite archetype in the format. Used to be black-red because I just didn't see black-red could do anything good, but I keep getting really powerful black-red sealed pools, so now I don't hate black-red anymore. But I've played black-white like twice. It's always been really bad. I've played against black-white and it never seemed very good. Really hope I don't end up in that direction, but it looks like we're more likely white than anything else. And red and white are pretty comparable in terms of the quality of cards we've drafted here, so fingers crossed we don't get pushed into black-white, but I could definitely see it happening here. I think it is relatively likely that black ends up being more open than white. Or sorry, black ends up being more open than red in this pod. Because that's just kind of generally how it is with the power level of the colors. The general meta of when people like to take cards in those colors. I feel like the best thing that black decks in this format can be doing is getting like the Ravenous Chupacabra and picking it up out of their grave over and over with cards like Another Chance. And that's really consistent in black-green and black-blue. Black-white has much less in terms of ways to do that. That kind of stuff. Plus, black almost always just plays control and white almost always plays aggro, and they just don't mesh super well there. I don't know. We'll see. There's still definitely a lot of places things could end up. So for pack 2, pick 1, we've got a Radiant Smite as the Alchemy card. This is a 2-mana instant to destroy a creature with power 4 or greater. And if you weren't the starting player, you gain 4 life, and you can cycle it for a white. Seems really reasonable. The big flaw with this kind of card is that there's certain matchups where your opponent might just never play a power 4 or greater card, but now you have a backup plan. It's not a super powerful one. You're just cycling it for 1 mana to draw something else. But it's solid. I like the Radiant Smite here. There's also a Jadelight Spelunker for pushing towards green-white, just taking the most powerful card in the pack, taking a sweet green rare. And I think green-white is a very reasonable archetype. So that could be an option too, but let's get some alchemy into here. Let's grab a Radiant Smite. There's also Staunch Crewmate. That was a really strong pack. I don't think we'd take the Staunch Crewmate though, because blue has not really seemed to open past our pick 2 Spyglass Siren. Pack 2, pick 2, there's a Mycelic Ballad. 3 and a black for a sorcery. Each player sacrifices X creatures and you gain X, where X is the spell's intensity. So 4 mana, each player sacks 2 creatures and you gain 2. Probably not very good. The 6 mana Dino that does the same thing that makes each player sack 2 is played really poorly. There's just too many easy ways to get expendable creatures on the board for your opponent to where this never really feels super one-sided in your favor. Got other like really solid red cards with Scytheclaw Raptor, really solid black card with the Tithing Blade. I would much prefer to end up in red-white than black-white, so I'm going to push farther into red with the Scytheclaw Raptor. Hope it works out for me, but it may not. We might get pushed to the black here. Yeah, these red cards are much weaker than the black spells in this pack that include a premium, really efficient removal spell off of Bitter Triumph, and whatever this thing is, Legion Reconsecrator. 2 and a black for a 3/2. Whenever it attacks, exile up to 1 creature from a graveyard. If you do conjure a duplicate of it into your graveyard, that becomes a Black Skeleton 3/1. When it dies, return another target creature card with power or toughness 1 from your graveyard to the battlefield. Okay, so this is insane, right? As long as it doesn't die the turn you play it, it's going to reanimate basically whatever you want as a 3/1 from your graveyard to the board. Yeah, seems pretty insane. I think we take that over the Bitter Triumph. And I guess we end up in black-white so that we can play some fun alchemy nonsense, because that's what it's all about here. They actually took the alchemy drafts out of the ranked queues as well, so you don't have to worry about losing your mythic ranks trying to do stupid fun things in the alchemy drafts, which is very nice for me. Very nice indeed, so we can focus a little more on drafting some of the new nonsense cards like High Marshal Arguel, which is another card that does stuff when it dies. This one is when it dies, you get an Arguel's Bloodfast. I don't know if that's even that good. 2 mana to pay 2 and draw a card, but you could play a flipped version instead, which means when it dies, you basically get a legendary land that taps for a black or lets you sack a creature to gain some life. So it's probably reasonable, and we are pushing into white-black now awkwardly anyway, so might as well take that. Now we've got an Oltec Cloud Guard. I am not a very big fan of Get Lost. It is really efficient removal mana-wise, but giving your opponent 2 map tokens, so giving them extra value here, makes it always worse than a 1-for-1, so you have to be getting a huge advantage out of the fact this is cheap removal. And this is a format where 1-for-1 removal is already not the greatest. So when you take your 1-for-1 removal and just give them even more value from you casting it, it can end really badly for you. So I'd rather just take a Cloud Guard, which is a really consistently good 4-drop, and it plays pretty great in the black-white archetype. I mean, it's really good with our War Scribe here. Let's grab that Cloud Guard and get another one. Really happy to see these. Another alchemy card here, Plunderer's Prize. Not really going to happen unless we do some splashing. Seek an on-land artifact with mana value X or less, put it onto the battlefield. If a card with mana value less than X is put onto the battlefield, then you make the Plunderer's Prize cost 1 more, but you put it back in your hand so you can keep seeking. That's really fun. It's really fun, but not really what this deck is going to be doing. Pick number 7, we can get a Tithing Blade now, which is perfectly reasonable. Could also take a Stinging Cave Crawler, but I don't think our deck is going to be very good at getting 4 permanent cards in the grave fast enough to make the Cave Crawler good. That's another one of those cards, the Descend cards in general, that I would say is pretty great in blue-black and black-green. Not much of a white-black card, though. I'll take a Tithing Blade here. Pack 2, pick 8. No one wants the Deep Cavern Bats. Happy to be in this color, then. Let's grab another Deep Cavern Bat. Pack 2, pick 9. Another Tithing Blade. I mean, I have to get more creatures at some point, but Envoy and Crackshot are both tremendously filler. I like the Tithing Blades better than this Cosmium Blast, so we'll drop that out of here. Alright, now I've got double Tithing Blade, and a Saw Blades, and a Radiant Smite, and a Dusk Rose Reliquary. Let's get another creature into the deck. Let's throw a Bartolome in here. We don't have a bunch of creature production for Bartolome to be super good, but we could sack a Tithing Blade or a Saw Blades if we don't want to flip it. Could sack a Skullcap Snail. There are some okay things to do with Bartolome here. And black is wide open. We get a Bitter Triumph, pick 11. I feel like this is definitely the color pair that we were destined to be in out of this draft. We just need to find 4 more playables, and Echo of Dusk is a perfectly fine 2 mana 2/2 with no text. Actually, we're doing good on a vampire count here. 1, 2, 3, 4 vampires in the deck. So if we find one of the random alchemy vampire cards that cares about having a bunch in your deck, we might actually get to do it. All right, we found a green, white, blue alchemy rare, so we can disregard that, even though it is probably pretty strong. We've got a Ruin Lurker Bat, and we can go all in on 1/1 flying lifelinkers with a Ruin Lurker Bat and 2 Deep Cavern Bats. Probably try to take another Deconstruction Hammer at that point. Seems really legit, but there's also a Stalactite Stalker. I don't think our deck is very good at consistently descending, but you don't have to be that great at it for this card to be pretty good. 1 mana, 1/1 menace that you can also sack to give something -1/-1/2 later. Really cool card. I think I'm going to take the Ruin Lurker Bat, and with how open black is, I don't think it's impossible that we just get the Stalactite Stalker to come back anyway. But even if it was just strictly taking the better card, I feel like Ruin Lurker Bat is slightly better in this deck, just because we're not very good at getting permanents in our grave that quickly. This is a hard pick again. Pack 3, pick 2. We've got a Bloodletter of Aklazot's, a really fun mythic rare from the main set. And a second copy of the Legion Reconsecrator. I was about to say Reconstructor, but it is Reconsecrator from the Alchemy cards. I think, when in an Alchemy draft, play all the Alchemy cards, we take the Reconsecrator thing. But I also think it might be a little bit better here, because even if we never attack with this, if it dies immediately, it can still reanimate Bartolome or Skullcap Snail or Deep Cavern Bat or Ruin Lurker Bat. And the one big issue with the Bloodletter is triple black. Triple black can be real hard to get to, where while that is technically a 4-mana spell, costing 3 black and 1, realistically speaking, if you're on a 9-8 split like most decks are, it's more of like a 7 or 8 mana spell by the time you have found 3 sources of that one color. So it's a really, really late game play. Pack 3, pick 3 is a bunch of nonsense we don't really want to play. I already cut the first Cosmium Blast. I've got so much other removal. We don't have a lot of super expendable stuff for the Acolyte. We're not filling the grave that quickly for the Cave Crawler, and we're just going to kill all of our own stuff with the Malicious Eclipse. Guess I'll hold that Alt key, see what I should rare draft, and Diamond Pickaxe it is. Get my 4th copy of that uncommon. Pack 3, pick 4 now. There is an Alchemy card, Dusk's Landing, that actually works in our deck. The rare day. I feel like this is going to go really late in a lot of these Alchemy draft pods. But draw a card. If an opponent lost life and you gained life this turn, seek 2 vampires instead. So 1 mana, if we hit our opponent with one of our 1/1 flying lifelinkers, we just seek 2 vampires at random from our deck. But multiple of our vampires are really good rares. So this Dusk's Landing might actually just be sick card draw. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I think we've got good enough removal to take the Dusk's Landing here and guarantee we get that, because there's a chance it doesn't wheel just because people might rare draft the Alchemy cards for their collection. I think that would be the only reason that the Dusk's Landing doesn't come back. But it is possible that happens, so I'm just going to take it because it's cool. And now Iron Paw Aspirant is pretty easily the pick. It's very good with our 3 1/1 flying lifelinkers. Solid otherwise. Wow. All right, well now I can take a Join the Dead anyway. I was going to say, I'm slightly sad to pass a Join the Dead over the Dusk's Landing, just in case we want big removal, but there we go, we get it anyway. Because black is astronomically open. Pick 7, this is all garbage doo-doo butt. We could take a greedy freebooter just because our Reconsecrators can bring it back. That's kind of cute. Probably not going to see play, but the Gore Stalker's definitely not. Guess I'll put it in for now. Pick 8, all the black cards are still here. Necromage is actually kind of spicy, because we can reanimate it with a Reconsecrator because it has that 1 toughness, whether or not we've attacked with a Reconsecrator or not. It's got a solid death trigger when we have something like a Bartolome on board, so that's cool. Yeah, definitely a better 3-drop to have in here than the Infantry. Pick 9, we get the Visage back, which it's kind of like a 6-drop big menacing finisher. It might be fine in this deck. Pick 10, we get another Bartolome back, but I'm not that pumped about Bartolome. I still think probably better than Screaming Phantom for this deck, so we'll take it. Gotta make some decisions when we build this deck. Mainly we gotta pick, what are the best removal spells? We might end up cutting the Tithing Blades, just because all the targeted removal, we get to choose exactly what we're killing. But with the Tithing Blades, we're just going to kill whatever they have. The smallest creature they have every time as well. I do like being able to life drain our opponent out with these things later, but I just don't think that's happening a lot. I'll take an Acolyte here, but actually with our 1 card that cares about vampires, it's actually better the less vampires we have. If all of our vampires are just really good, then seeking 2 vampires is a lot better than if I run a really filler vampire like the Acolyte, and I might seek that instead of a Reconsecrator. That would be a huge bummer if that happens. Same reason I'm not going to take the really dirtily 4-mana vampire here. Okay, so let's just cut some filler and cut the weakest removal. So there are cute things we can do with our Tithing Blade. The main thing is like we play it, we kill something, and then we also sack it to Bartolome to get a counter, but also being able to flip it later is cool too. I just think all our other removal is better. Join the Dead, Bitter Triumph, Saw Blades, and Radiant Smite. I think we just run all that for removal. Cut these two. Most filler creatures are definitely the Archaeologists. I think that's the only incredibly filler creature here. Maybe the Freebooter too. Puts us down to 41 cards. I don't hate the idea of a 16 land deck here, even with a potential 6-drop Visage, because we're still casting the discard part for 2 mana. Yeah, 16 landed up. I think this deck looks really reasonable to me. It's cool stuff. 15 black cards, 12 white cards. Do we even split that? It's kind of close. We've got 4 more black cards than white cards. We've also got a double black with Join the Dead. I've got a double white with the Malamet War Scribe. I still want to keep it in this deck because we have double Necromage and double Cloud Guard, which is really nice. We can curve into that thing. But double white could be a bit awkward. If we're cutting down to 16 lands and cutting another planes here to go 9/7, we might not always have 2 planes. If we've drawn 5 lands, we still statistically will more often than not. But by cutting another planes, does make 4 swamps in 1 planes more of a possibility. Yeah, I guess the fact that we don't need double white until 5 mana, but we might need double black at 2 mana, means 9/7 seems pretty reasonable to me. We'll cut that land, and we will call it a deck here. All right, here's a look at our final deck list for today. We're on a black-white little vampire value deck using a lot of new alchemy cards. So for the core of the deck, the basic Lost Caverns of Ixalan stuff, we're playing the black-white sacrifice theme, which is one of the kind of weakest, least represented themes in the format, but we have a lot of the strongest cards for it. So we have cards like Oltec Cloud Guard and Synapse Necromage that can be multiple creatures off of the one spell. So we've got good sack fodder for cards like 2 copies of Bartolome del Presidio to get even bigger, which is nice. Or we could just have a big board state for the Malamet War Scribe. Alongside all those, we've got just the great efficient removal that this color pair gets us with Join the Dead, Bitter Triumph, Spring-Loaded Saw Blades, and Dusk Rose Reliquary. So a really solid just Lost Caverns of Ixalan black-white core to this deck, but a lot of spicy, fancy things coming in from the alchemy cards. A couple of them are Legion Reconsecrators, which are just great value by themselves. 3 mana for a 3/2, but when they attack, you can exile a creature card from a graveyard to make a 3/1 black skeleton copy of it in your graveyard. Then, when this dies, you return another creature with power or toughness 1 from your graveyard to the battlefield. So if it gets an attack off, you can get a 3/1 copy of a creature from any grave onto your battlefield. If it dies before it gets an attack off, you can still reanimate something like a Necromage that has 1 toughness, a High Martial Arguel that has 1 toughness, a Bartolome, a Skullcap Snail, a Deep Cavern Bat, a Ruin Lurker Bat, or an Ironpaw Aspirant, any of these 1 power or toughness cards. So Reconsecrator looks really consistent in this deck, even if our opponent just like deadweights it the turn we play it. So that's going to be super sweet. But we've also got High Martial Arguel. This is another death trigger kind of card. When this one dies, we conjure Arguel's Bloodfast onto the battlefield and we may transform it. So either we get a card draw engine where we pay life to draw cards, or we get the flip side of that Bloodfast, which is a land that we can also sack creatures to gain life to. So if we need to ramp up, we can do that, or if we need some life gain, we can get that as well. Now, it's a little awkward how Arena shows us this, because it shows the Bloodfast and then it shows the Vampire Demon for just in case we manage to get a Bloodfast and a Temple of Aclazotz and then have the High Martial die. But that's never going to happen. I really just want to see the backside of the Bloodfast, which I can't see. Luckily, I remember original Ixalan. It's the Temple of Aclazotz. It's the land that taps for a black, or you sack a creature and gain life equal to its toughness. Something like that. So basically, if you want to land, you flip a land off the High Marshal. So there's that too. 2 more Alchemy cards in the deck, the non-land cards, 1 more removal spell with a Radiant Smite, and a pretty sweet Dusk's Landing, because all those Alchemy rares we just talked about are vampires, as well as our 2 Bartolomeys. So if we can hit our opponent with one of our 1/1 flying lifelink cards, like a Ruin Lurker Bat or a Deep Cavern Bat, then when we cast this, we're going to draw 2 of our vampires at random off of this spell for just 1 mana. So that's going to be really good if we can get that going. So that should be pretty spicy and pretty fun as well. But that is it for the deck. That is what we are playing today. Hopefully it plays out pretty well, but we'll find out soon enough as we head into the gameplay. Here we are for game 1, and our opponent is on the play. Really love the idea of Skullcap Snail into the Reconsecrator. So if the Reconsecrator dies, we get a snail back from our grave, as long as we've chump blocked with that snail first. It's just reanimating a Skullcap Snail rips another card out of our opponent's hand, which should be pretty nasty. Our opponent starts with a Sunken Citadel, which is basically like Evolving Wilds. You just pick a color, it hits the board tapped, and it's going to tap for that color. But it also taps for 2 mana towards activating your lands. So if they got any of the creature lands, or cards like Captivating Cave, they'll get there a little faster. So it definitely looks like a cave deck over there with Sunken Citadel into Captivating Cave. A lot of cave payoffs in the format that are really powerful if you can draw the right lands to cast them. It's the one flaw of the deck, is that it's a bit slow. You need a lot of caves on board for it to start popping off, but if you can make it to the late game, you do some insanely explosive things. And our opponent's going to have a good time making it to the late game when they play a 2-mana 3/3 out of the Alchemy spells. The Propagator Primordium is a 2-mana 3/3. When it hits the board, they make 2 copies in their grave, so they've got 2 more now if they have Graveyard Recursion. At the beginning of your upkeep, put a Spore counter on it. You can remove 3 Spore counters from it to return a fungus from your grave to the battlefield. Good lord. Alright, well, I don't have any removal that can actually kill that thing, and it's going to be a huge problem for me. So I guess I'm going to drop a Skullcap Snail and then chump block it so I have that engraved for Reconsecrator. And then I'll try to get some attacks with the Reconsecrator to at least exile some of the Primordiums. This is just a easy to cast 2-mana 3/3 with major upside. 1 and a green for a 3/3, and every 3 turns you spit out another 3/3. Oh my god, yeah, because if they... What? They just have 2 in their opening, not even just their deck, but their opening hand? Oh. Oh my god. So if they get to 3 Spore counters, they're going to pick up 1, which is going to put 2 more in their grave. And then if they get to another 3, they're going to have like 4 of these on the board. And then they pick up 4 and put like 8 more in grave. I think we lose. I don't know. I'm not 100% confident on this, but 2 Propagator Primordiums? Even 1 was going to be horrendously bad. Our Radiant Smite looks pretty terrible here. It is exactly out of reach. It's 3 power instead of 4, but that's why it's got cycling. There's an Eatskeent from our opponent, just a 2/3 here. Guess I can trade into the Primordium that's about to reanimate something. Because I'm not going to get 4 attacks off with this thing to exile all 4 Primordiums from grave. So we trade into the one that's closer to picking up a fungus, and then we also Skullcap Snail them again off of the death trigger. Like, this is our deck kind of popping off, and the Primordiums are still terrifying. So there's our Bartolome. Like, if I can just stop this from attacking, then it is going to be a while before it goes crazy. And all I really have to do is play a 3-power creature. I can just play a Cloud Guard here. Would I rather go Bartolome plus Aspirant? I can't. I don't have double white, so it'd have to be Bartolome plus Echo. I guess I could block with a 3-2 Bartolome, just like blocking with a Cloud Guard. Then I can keep the flyer for later that way. Yeah, I just sack a Skullcap Snail, I guess. Or I guess it's the exact same thing to just block with Bartolome and Skullcap Snail. So need a third fungus counter. A third spore counter. So we have one more turn to find removal for the Primordium, or else it's going to pop off. And they'll get another one, that's then going to get another one. That's then going to get another one. I was wrong, actually, about it making duplicates. It just puts the duplicates in graves, so it's just going to bring one of them back in 3 turns. But I guess if they both, like, survive, then they get 2 back the next time. So I guess there's that. Okay. So we just clear out the fungus things and then try to get there with a flyer. I'm still at 13 life facing 5 power of dinosaurs, which isn't ideal. But if I just make a 3-3 Echo, if I make a 3-3 Echo and chump block with an Aspirant here to make it a 4-4 lifelinker, that could be legit. So I have a 3-3 blocker for their 2-3. I have a 1-2 chump for the 3-3 so that I can make the Echo of Dusk lifelink. Might have been better to just play Cloud Guard and just take damage for a turn. I'm getting a little scared. Probably preemptively. It's probably not time to really worry about the life total when I have a potential lifelinker coming up. Okay, another white source is beautiful. Now I can play the Cloud Guard and the Radiant Smite and look very smart. See, I was just wanting to be able to double spell on the next turn with 2 white cards. That's why we did it. Was I the starting player? No, Nikki Wu was the starting player. So we will not gain life off of this. We might just cycle this pretty soon. I've probably had an extra white mana up at some point. Well, maybe not. We've only had 1 white source until this turn. If I did, though, I probably should have just cycled it earlier. So our opponent has 2 caves on board, and they have this land that taps for 2 mana for them. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They have enough mana to sack either of their caves. Roaming Throne. We found the target. We found the Radiant Smite target just in time. It has ward, so I can't do it right now, though, so there's that. But now I can. Boop. Cool. Oh, wait. I do gain the 4 because I wasn't the starting player. I just saw the name on this thing and I assumed that it would be like, that's the player who gets the benefit of Radiant Smite. No, the non-starting player gets the benefit. So we do get the 4 life. One day I'll learn how alchemy cards work. And that'll be when they finally stop printing more alchemy cards. I won't understand anything in this format until then. Alright, Join the Dead was really good here to kill our lifelinker. And now we have no good blocks. I think I just take this so I can save these to stack up alongside another creature to kill. I need to stop hitting lands. I really do. We are definitely getting outraced now. I don't think I can just instantly afford to trade my Cloud Guard off into a 3-3 on the ground. But if I hit another land, I'm going to have to. These are not the draws you're looking for. I was like, how do they have 8 cards in their graveyard? And then I looked and I was like, that's right. Propagator Primordiums. We're so far behind here, because I just have another land in my hand, and they have 2 caves they can crack still. So even if their hand is 2 lands, they're still real far ahead. Dusk's Landing just to draw 1. Bitter Triumph. I'm really gonna have to blow this on a 2/3 when they're about to discover 4 as their worst possible play. This is painful. I'm gonna go to 3. Alright, we definitely kill the 2/5 flyer. That is a very good draw. Say leave a 1/1 back so I'm not dead to removal. I guess they could crack the Captivating Cave to put 2 +1/+1 counters on Eatskeent. That's still... Now that would be a 4/5. So then we wouldn't have a viable block anymore. I shouldn't have attacked at all, just so that we could still block and kill it if they Captivating Caved. But they've still got more spells to cast here, it looks like. Gargantuan Leech it is. Now the life totals are going to start becoming insanely weighted in our opponent's favor. Here's a super late Deconstruction Hammer. I guess I might as well buff something that can actually block. There's really no point in attacking because they kill one of our creatures and gain 5, so we end up just giving them some life gain while sacking a creature if we attack in. Really? Oh my god, our opponent is living the dream. I mean, it's not like we get nothing here, but the Propagators with the Bringer of the Last gift to return all the Propagators from grave. Well, if we're gonna die game 1 of the Alchemy draft, at least we're gonna do it in style. This was some insane nonsense from our opponent. That is objectively very cool. Yeah, that's pretty good. Pretty good stuff for our opponent here. Oh, I wish they picked Fungus and just had like infinite triggers. They have 15 cards in graveyard now. Alchemy is so silly. Another Legion Reconsecrator. Doesn't really do anything, right? We're still just dead on board. 8 blockers. They have 11 attackers. My lord, yeah, we're insanely dead on board. Don't think it matters who I put this hammer onto. Guess I put it on the Echo to threaten more lifelink. Because I can Bartolome 2 permanents into my grave to make the Echo of Dusk lifelink on blocks. Not that that saves me. I mean, it definitely doesn't flip the game in my favor or anything, but maybe there's some possible way to go to like 1. Yeah. Buff the Pilgrim. Can't Deconstruction Hammer anything because we just don't have the mana. Both their artifacts have Ward. Oh, that's rude. Attack with only the flyers. Yeah, that is dead then. Alright, well, We got absolutely bombed out. The Primordium, the double Primordium early for these cheap little 3/3s that really needed to be dealt with kind of put us behind right off the start. We were getting to a point where we were maybe like stabilizing, trying to get things in our favor, but a few rough draws, didn't really find any action for a little bit, and then our opponent just showing us the wombo combo in the end with the Bringer of the Last Gift to reanimate all of the conjured duplicates of their 2-mana 3/3s. Spicy ending to that game, but a hard loss for us in game 1. Alright, here we are on the play for game 2 with a really spicy start. Now we get to try to do a little more of our own alchemy nonsense. Drain our opponent for life with the Ruin Lurker Bat on turn 2, which means that the Dusk's Landing does conjure 2 vampires into our hand. Is it worth it to play the 1-mana spell just because I'm guaranteed to get the draw 2 off of it right now? Or do I get a little greedy and try to be more mana efficient and do it next turn? We see a forest from our opponent. I'm going to get a little greedy here. Green is not going to have a 2-mana removal spell to kill this Ruin Lurker Bat. So unless they go like Mountain Abrade the Bat, I think it's probably better to Dusk's Landing next turn. And Sunfire Torch is removal for the bat, but they have to play a creature first. Okay, so now I get to be perfectly mana efficient, because I can also just Aspirant the bat up, and then Dusk's Landing post-combat, which is really nice. This is probably a little bold, but I'm just going to cash in some damage here, because we also get the Scry by doing this. Seek 2 vampires, get a Legion Reconsecrator and an Echo of Dusk. We've descended, so we scry a land away. That was a really spicy turn. This is a really spicy curve in general. So if our opponent finds a haste creature, they can kill Bartolome, but they do not. They drop a Huatli. Fantastic mythic rare. 3-mana 2/3, grabs any basic they need, then for 5 mana they transform her into a Saga that gives them 2 3/3s, lets all their creatures tap for mana, searches for another dino from the deck, and then double strike and tramples the whole board. So ideally we just end up killing Huatli before any of that happens. Cast 2 2-drops or 1 Legion Reconsecrator. Let's go for the double 2-drop, because that lets me play Skullcap Snail pre-combat so that Bartolome can profitably attack into Huatli and just not die if they block. If they don't block, it doesn't seem horrible to hit them for 1 more point of damage again. Fills the graveyard for the Echo of Dusk, makes Bartolome out of reach of the Sunfire Torch at 3 toughness instead of 2. And then we also get to scry again. I think that's perfectly fine. Now we'll play the Echo and pass the turn and scry this swamp away. So Wingbane Vantasaur, that card is phenomenal. Another great alchemy one. Conjures a Savage Stomp fight spell into their hand or a Naturalize into their hand to destroy an artifact or enchantment. So basically, for 5 mana, they can play a 4/5 and immediately have it get a +1/+1 counter and fight a creature, which is super nuts. But they can also spread that amongst 2 turns like our opponent is doing here, where they don't have 5 mana yet, so they're just going to cast the Vantasaur for 4 and then fight next turn, which is actually a huge roadblock for us, because it's got reach too. Yeah, this Vantasaur is a massive deal. If I reconsecrate her, I can pick up an Aspirant at instant speed, get really fancy with it. It's probably like objectively the dumber play, but that's cool enough that I'm gonna do it. Obviously can't attack with the Ruin Lurker Bat now. No blocks. Wait a second. Hold the phone. Objectively cooler play finds lethal out of nowhere? Big bada boom? right, well, that was some spicy stuff. This is a cool deck. This is a cool deck you're not going to get to play super often. It's only in the alchemy queues that you get to do stuff that nonsense with Bartolome. Because the Legion Reconsecrator, trigger Bartolome, reanimate an aspirant, put another counter on Bartolome, sack the aspirant as well. That's really spicy. Pretty happy to have the double Reconsecrator, double Bartolome thing going on, because that can lead to some cool things in some future games as well. We'll see if we can draw those cards again in conjunction, because that was pretty nice. We are now 1-1, heading into game number 3. Here we are for game 3. Don't really start things off till turn 3 with the Reconsecrator, but I think it's a good enough card. Keep the hand here. We'll just Visage on turn 2, see what our opponent's up to. We probably end up sacking this to the Duskrose Reliquary, but it's already been a 1-for-1 just by ripping one card out of their hand. So I'm fine with that. And I suppose like maybe the Necromage just dies and then we've got fungus tokens to sack to Reliquary, in which case we have a very good removal spell coming up. Since those fungi are really just not going to do anything else. Alright, opponent takes a Mull to 6. Then we'll start things off with a Swamp. Blue deck over there with a Hidden Cataract to start things off. Let's see exactly what they're up to with our Visage. Blue, red, white, strongest colors in the set. They've got the Chameel to be an insane card draw engine later in the game. They have a Cogwork Wrestler and a Plundering Pirate to slow us down. And they have a Master's Guide Mural to get a 4/4 and a ton more once they have 7 mana. Well, they don't have a red source for the Plundering Pirate yet, but that is the best play towards getting into their other spells. I think I still have to just get rid of this Chameel, though. Or that thing's just gonna absolutely swing things in our opponent's favor. They make that 6 mana. Alright, Radiant Smite is not actually horrific in this matchup. Because they've got 4/4s coming up with that Master's Guide Mural eventually. Alright, play an Oaken Siren and an Island, so they do have Cogwork Wrestler mana up, sadly. So they Cogwork Wrestler, the Necromage down to 1/1 stats, and it says goodbye. But then I can Reconsecrator and Reliquary. Got something super expendable for that. I actually kind of like that. Dang. Well, our opponent is like, why on earth would you attack into the revealed Cogwork Wrestler? So they just take the damage. I'm slightly sad because I thought it would be really cool to get those fungus tokens to play the Duskrose Reliquary, but at the same time, it is probably just super fine that we just got 3 damage in there and didn't trade off. Might even be better. Because this Duskrose Reliquary, if I don't get to just exile the Oaken Siren with it right now, I can exile the Master's Guide Mural so they don't end up getting like a million 4/4s off of the Manufactory. This can exile an artifact. Can artifact an exile. Okay, can't actually cast the Smite, it's just highlighting it because I can cycle it for 1. So we are going to Smite the 4/4 Reliquary. The Guide Mural? That's the play, right? They're tapped out of Cogwork Wrestler. The problem is, what do I sack to the Reliquary now? Do I sack the Visage just because I'm not going to get 2 creatures in grave anytime soon? You're really planning on sacking a fungus. Maybe that is not a thing. Yeah, I guess I just sack the Visage. Keep all this nonsense on board. Scry 1 in the end step. Since we'll have sacked the Visage. I mean, I could still exile the Oaken Siren. They need to draw 3 more mana to flip the Guide Mural. If I get rid of this. That's 1 mana source down. Yeah, they have to draw 3 lands to flip this thing. Find a Saw Blades. Ooh. I mean, I don't think they're going to have a tapped creature anytime soon at this rate. I think we need to scry into more aggressive cards. Saw Blades is a really strong card. It's just, I don't see them having a tapped creature for a long while. Alright, well now they just take 4. So they can Braided Net one of these down. Oh yeah, they still have the Cogwork Wrestler, so they can kill the Necromage, but it's still good to get the Wrestler out of the way. Because we'll still have 2 1/1s and Scry now to make sure we don't really flood out. Yeah, I'm going to be completely honest, I forgot about Cogwork Wrestler, even though it was sitting there revealed. But I think it's still good to attack in with the Necromage there. Get that Wrestler out of the way, we don't have to deal with it later. Because it's not that bad to lose a Necromage to it. We still have 2 1/1s off of it, and we get the Descend to Scry. So our opponent finds their red source off of a multicolored cave. We find a Skullcap Snail. It's actually pretty spicy too. Guess we just cast this here. They tap the Reconsecrator. We just hit them for 1. Because tokens going to our graveyard doesn't count as us descending. Descending cares about permanent cards, not permanent tokens. So it would just be sacking a Fungus to deal 1 damage, which is not that great. So we just drop the Snail. They get rid of a Goblin Tomb Raider. Keep that Plundering Pirate, because it's going to put them at 6 out of 7 mana to flip the Guide Mural. This Braided Net has really slowed us down. Without this, they'd be near dead now, if not already. So this Braided Net has successfully bought them the time they need to flip that Guide Mural next turn, which will be really bad for us. Ooh. Speaking of things that are really bad, this is really bad for our opponent. It's not lethal, because they stop 3 of these creatures. They block 2 of them and tap another. But it is 6 damage. Which is pretty large. Whatever is in their hand is whatever they top decked. Because they exiled a card and then cast the Plundering Pirate. So they exiled the non-pirate card. They top decked the Braid. That's not actually insane here because I get to reanimate something. But it does stop 3 of the damage. They just take 3 damage this turn now instead of 6. Although they did spend a treasure to do that, so now they can't flip the Guide Mural next turn. They have to draw into something. They have to draw into something. No block. Okay, never mind. I was going to say, no blocks with the Cogwork Wrestler there. To go to 3. Our opponent doesn't care. They don't want to think about this game anymore. They don't want to top deck something, so I'm just going to stop. I'm still, for some reason, my brain's trying to process things there. Like, I wonder why the no block with the Wrestler, what are they trying to draw into or whatever, but they just conceded, so nothing, apparently. We are 2-1 now. Some more really spicy stuff from the deck. The War Scribe alongside, or not the War Scribe, the War Veteran alongside the Fungus Producer there being a really nice way to top off that game. Super, super solid stuff as we are 2-1 heading into round 4. Here we are on the play for game 4. We don't have a Flying Lifelinker to go with the Dusk's Landing. Kind of sad. That would be super sweet. Am I supposed to just cycle it turn 1 then? I feel like when I don't have a Flying Lifelinker in hand, I'm supposed to just cycle this. Especially because I'm curving out from then on. I am a greedy man, though. I'm not going to do it. 100% it's the right play. But that's too bad. Alright, here's Bartolome. Our opponent has a Ruin Lurker Bat. That's where you are. in my opponent's opening hand. You're supposed to be in mine. I've got the Dusk's Landing. Come on, Ruin Lurker. Miner's Guidewing. Oh, Lord. They've got all the 1-mana 1/1 flyers. Which is terrible bad for me. This could find that one land. If I just want to ramp up, I could just sack High Marshal to turn it into a land, which is cute. I mean, I'll do that if they block. This is fine. I'll beat the Guidewing and get a land. Basically trading High Marshal into the Guidewing. While buffing Bartolome permanently. I genuinely think this is a solid trade for me, because I don't even know if I'm going to top deck the 4th land for the double Cloud Guard, and the double Cloud Guard are definitely good. So, sack a creature, gain life equal to its toughness. Yeah, that is the card I remembered. Petrify. Their top deck is Petrify. That's so rude. Look, Arena's giving me another opportunity to make the right choice and use Dusk's Landing, but here's the thing. I can Temple of Aclazotz away my Petrified Bartolome on a turn where I hit my opponent with something, and then I can seek 2 vampires. Uh-oh. Our opponent gets to draw a card every turn now. Every time they hit me with a creature with greater power than its base power. So if it has a +1/+1 counter, or +1/+1 till end of turn, or an equipment on it or something, then the Coot Seal goes ham. Ooh, Deep Cavern Bat. That's spicy. Rip something out of their hand and play an Aspirant to make the bat big enough to trade into theirs. I don't really want to trade my Deep Cavern Bat off, though, because I want to permanently exile whatever I'm choosing. So I guess we just play a Cloud Guard, then they have to petrify the Cloud Guard. And then we can sack it and hit my opponent next turn and do the Dusk Landing and stuff. I actually don't love my options here. Maybe I actually do just trade a Deep Cavern Bat off at that point because they've got the Petrify. This way I can Petrify. I'm really trying to stop their card draw here. It feels like the only way we stop their card draw. By getting rid of the Petrify. Oh. Well. I'm going to say getting rid of the Petrify so they can't shut off my flyer. I guess I get rid of the Iron Paw Aspirant at this point so they can't have 2 different creatures that are threatening to draw a card. Now, if they both hit me, they'll still only draw 1 card. But this way, if I deal with just the bat, then they're out of creatures that trigger the Exemplar's ability. So I'm going to get rid of the Aspirant. And this also makes it a little more awkward for them if they want to petrify the Deep Cavern Bat. Because if they petrify the Deep Cavern Bat, then they're just down the Aspirant. They're not going to get it back. Because then they've spent a removal spell on the Deep Cavern Bat too. But if they don't petrify the Deep Cavern Bat, then I trade into the Ruin Lurker Bat. Oh, unless they just straight draw something that we couldn't exile because they drew it right off the top. Probably the worst feeling in the world. All of you constructed players know the feeling of thought seize your opponent and then they just top deck the perfect card against your deck. And you're like, well, okay. And that was our opponent right there. I feel like that line was actually pretty good, but they just drew the answer. That's very bad for us. And they still have double petrify here. They're at 23 because of the stupid bat. We play a Cloud Guard, they petrify it. Jam in, and I start chumping the Exemplar and sacking to Bartolome each time. I guess they can just petrify Bartolome. Yep. Yeah, this is insane. This thing's gonna have drawn them 3 cards now. Card is nutty. So I'm just gaining some life here. Well, they're out of petrifies that we know of. Now I can get the Dusk's Landing temple thing going and maybe keep whatever I draw into. Or I can just try to get this Cloud Guard to block their bat. Let's try to get this Cloud Guard to block the bats. I would have to triple block the Exemplar to try to kill it. Still. And then if they have any trick, it's going to be terrible. They have an Aspirant also to put a counter onto it because they killed my bats. So they just put a counter on Cootseal, and I don't have good blocks for that. I still have the 3-2 against a 3-3 if they buff the bat. So we're just going to chump block. So I think I send 1 in. I'm going to leave 2. No, they're not going to use removal on a 1/1 token. So let's send in for 2. This way we can gain life off of the temple and cast the Dusk's Landing to seek 2 vampires. For max value, find the Bartolome Reconsecrator combo. But our opponent's still at 18. So I don't know how much that really does for us. But it is something. Alright, Soaring Sandwing. Finally, no card draw for our opponents. Cool. Let's see if we can just draw removal for the Sandwing. I've got a lot of removal in this deck as far as I remember. Duskrose Reliquary, Radiant Smite, Bitter Triumph. There we go. Found the removal for the Sandwing. I could also just kill the Cootseal, but I think I'm going to be so much better at blocking things on the ground that I would rather just let them keep the card draw engine and just try to block it than let them keep the flyer. Right, because if I clear this thing out, then yeah, they can't, like, get the Waterwind Scout out and put counters on it to start drawing cards. But in the immediate future, I'm going to start taking 4 a turn. And they're at 23 and I'm at 11, so I don't think I can really start taking 4 a turn. I mean, maybe with the Temple I can. Actually, maybe. I could instantly reanimate a Deep Cavern Bat. Wait, I could reanimate this thing? Hold up, I'm gonna do something really stupid. I don't know if it's the right thing to do. But I'm gonna do something really stupid. Oh shoot, I still have to sack this, so I need to play Bartolome as well. So I needed to not auto-tap. God dang it. I needed to play Bartolome! No! But I get my 4/3 flyer and a Bloodfast. That's gotta be good, right? Listen, 1 in Alchemy. Oh, I get 2 of them. Wait, if you control enchantment named Bloodfast and Temple, instead create 2. Wait, I would have to have both out and have the High Marshal die. So it doesn't actually work. Alright, they just get the blue source for the flyer, makes sense. I don't think this actually works how I want it to. And now I'm sad. I just wanted to do a spicy alchemy combo, but alchemy has too many lines of text. When it dies, conjure a Bloodfast. I can transform it. I control both, instead create both. Well, hold up. No, it dies, I conjure the Bloodfast, and then I may transform it. Because I'll control both, instead of being able to transform it, instead create 2/4, right? The instead is instead of transforming it, right? Or is the instead of conjuring it in the first place? I don't know. I don't know. I feel like I'm just going to get a Bloodfast, but a Bloodfast is not that bad here. We can use it to attempt to draw into removal for the Waterwind Scout to stay ahead here. I certainly have enough life with the Temple of Aklazot's on board to do some digging. Alright, a bunch of nonsense from our opponent. The only thing that really matters is that they have a flyer that can draw cards off the Exemplar. Okay, so I conjure the card onto the battlefield. I'm not casting a spell, so even though I can't cast spells during their turn, I can still do this. So let's do this, so I can draw the cards right now. Okay, conjure the Bloodfast. Decline the transform. I don't get the flyers. That's... Conjure it. You may transform it if you control both. Okay. Alright. That's sad. But we definitely got to use this. There's a Visage. There's a Deep Cavern Bat, which I guess is a chump. That ain't it. That is not my bitter triumph. 7 life here. I can go down pretty low when I have the Temple on board. What are my outs? I have 1 Join the Dead for double black and 1. 1 Bitter Triumph for 1 and a black. 1 Spring-Loaded Saw Blades for 1 and a white. I've got a Radiant Smite as well, but that doesn't work unless they buff the Scout again. So I have 3 outs. They all cost a double black and 1 or less. So I have the mana. To draw cards twice, digging for it, and then cast the bat if I don't find it. But if I draw the cards twice, I'm going to have to sack something to Temple to not die to the 3. I think I still do it. Skullcap Snail does not save me. One more draw. Deconstruction Hammer doesn't either. But it's really nice to put on the bat. So I guess now I play the bat and play the hammer, but I hold up the untapped Temple. They have literally just lands in their hand, but 1 can buff that Waterwind Scout to insane stats. Which is so bad. They just play a Captivating Cave and make the Waterwind Scout a 5/5. I guess that gives us 1 more way to kill it. If it's a 5/5, then it dies to my destroy a power 4 or greater card. Poke for 3, wee. Let's see what the top deck is. I really hope they don't do it to me twice. They don't just top deck a great non-land card. Because I just batted them. And that's what happened first time as well. We played the bat, they hit the Watley's Final Strike, which is just the perfect removal for the bat, which I would have just cleared out had it been in their hand and not off the top. So if they didn't draw something good, they can play the cave and buff the Waterwind Scout, or they can crack the Hidden Courtyard to discover at random. I guess they could buff the Aspirant as well. They keep looking at it. They can buff whatever they want. Anything they buff is a decent play with this Captivating Cave. Just think buffing the Waterwind Scout looks the most natural. But they are going to buff the Exemplar. That is fine. If I don't chump the Waterwind Scout, they're going to draw a card, which is the biggest reason to chump it. The biggest reason not to chump it is I'll have a flying lifelinker to try to outrace them with. I feel like with a Bloodfast on my board to draw a bunch of cards. Well, not anymore. Because I don't have the life to keep spending on it. I still feel like I just gotta find removal for this thing rather than trying to drain out with this Deep Cavern Bat. Actually probably go full life gain here and just gain 2. Rather than buffing Bartolome this time. Echo of Dusk is not what I am looking for. Can only really afford to pay life into this Bloodfast 1 time now. I mean, Echo, I guess, isn't terrible because the lifelink. What if I just play this and equip it? I've got a 4/4 lifelink on the ground. They probably just don't attack on the ground anymore. Play and equip costs 3 mana. I do still have the mana to spend 2 to draw a card and play any removal I hit, so here we go. Oh my god. Oh my god. Okay, so... shoot. I kind of want to Visage now and just know what they have. That's a land. It's a friggin' land. Okay, I've still got a black and 1-up for Bitter Triumph. They're playing off the top here. So we're just going to kill the Waterwind Scout. And then we just use Echo of Dusk to win. Right. I don't know if I should be holding this up for instant speed. If they top deck a counter spell, that'd be really weird. Blue looks like a splash. And there aren't any hexproof tricks in this format, I think. Oh no, I can't cast spells during their turn. Oh no! Well, I'm not dead. I'm not dead. But that's a pretty important line of text to remember. Oh no. Alright. Alright, the punt of the game has been made. The punt of the day. Hopefully that's the only one that happens with this bad. Alright, we obviously just sack something here then. Don't tell me they drew some kind of +1/+1 thing. God dang it, they draw the card. Oh, that's such a rough punt. If they didn't, like, draw a card off making the attack here, this wouldn't be that bad. Ah, it's so tilting. Magic cards and their 6 lines of text all the time. Alright. So we sorcery speed all of our interaction here. Skullcap Snail's so bad on this board, but at least it can get sacked to something. Something like that. Yeah, Skullcap Snail's never going to exile something good. Their Deconstruction Hammer can just kill our Dusk Rose Reliquary now. And then we need to find removal for another flyer, which is super bad. At least, again, they kind of don't have attacks on the ground anymore. This game has lasted so much longer than I thought it would, and I am so over it after that last punt. Stop fighting flyers! They have discovered a Miner's Guidewing, which normally discovering a 1-drop on your Discover 4 card would be a pretty big bummer, but Flyers are really, really good right now, especially with a deconstruction hammer to make it 2 power. I mean, if they don't play and sack their deconstruction hammer in the same turn, though, then I just deconstruction their deconstruction, so they can't get back their 3/5 flyer, right? Yeah, no, they don't have the mana to sack the deconstruction hammer here, so we actually just... We just kill the deconstruction hammer since they played it. And then now we know they can't get back their 3/5 flyer. Alright, cool. Make the axe draw 6/5. Sure. That's it. Okay. Deconstruction your deconstruction. Draw for turn. Synapse Necromage. A bunch of cards on the ground. So they're still never getting it on the ground. But they sure are poking me in the sky here. With the temple, again, we're not gonna die. I don't think I want to mill myself anymore, but getting a 5/4 menace is fine. Okay, I guess I'll just get a 5/4 menace. They clear out the cloud guards. Because the reconstructors aren't going to be able to get more than 1 attack in. Alright, there's the Dread Osteosaur. No good attacks on ground past turn. Now they're fully playing off the top. They have run out of caves. They are milling out before us. Oh my god, they hit an alchemy removal spell. That's instant speed Oblivion Ring. That's even better. Instant speed, hits the board, exiles anything until it leaves the battlefield, and makes one of their creatures a copy of the exiled card forever. Yeah, that card is insane. I guess I could just sacrifice whatever they target, at least, to one of many different cards. Oh, I wish War Scribe were a little bit better here. It's still okay. We can get a big lifelink attack off the Echo of Dusk. Send in the Osteosaur as well. Might as well, I suppose. At 1, I'm going to be at 6 off of this life gain. I am threatening quite a bit of damage. So I probably do actually send in Bartolome as well. I should be able to survive a crackback. Even through a reflection net thing. With a gain 5 right now, and a potential like 4 more off the temple. 3 chump blockers on the ground. 2 if they kill one of them. I think we do send in everything that's big enough to not just die. Chump block there. Trade axe draw for the Echo. Yep. Osteor just gets in. Or Osteosaur. This all looks good to me. They're at 7, we're at 6. If I cast the Necromage, I don't have the mana up to sack a creature and gain life if they somehow find lethal, but we know exactly what they're drawing. They're going to exile a War Scribe, we block, take 1. I guess I still don't think I could cast the Necromage here, because then I don't get to sacrifice whatever they're trying to exile to stop them from making their own copy of it. Although it's not like any of our cards are that much better than theirs. They just turn their Scout into a War Scribe. Because I don't think that it actually works on Ossisaur. I think it would make it a copy of a Visage. Right? Because it's the front half of the card. So yeah, I don't think it would work on Ossisaur anyway. Which I guess means that gives them the easiest target here. They just target Ossisaur. No, they're going to target War Scribe? Okay, well. Sure. Stop that from happening. So they just poke me for 1 and they don't draw a card. And down to 7 against the 5/4 Menace. Things are actually maybe happening here. I've got the life total to draw some cards off Bloodfast. Crackback with a big enough Bartolome, they have to block with Cootseal or die. I guess they block with Guidewing, but that would still kill their flyer. Do I double block and trade into the Scouts, or do I just make Bartolome bigger? I feel like I make Bartolome bigger, so Bartolome's big enough to attack into Cootseal easily. Maybe I should have drawn the card first, and that would help decide what the play is, but I'm going to draw the card. Okay. Land, I think, would just be the same play. All right. Oh, another land. 6 life. Bartolome one-shots them. They have to block Bartolome. So we kill the flyer off that by playing Necromage. And we've got the Temple to gain so much life. If we need it. Yeah, they have to chomp. Because Bartolome threatens to be like 9 power here with Necromage on board. Explore off the Cootseal. We'll see exactly what they're drawing. Thrashing Brontodon. They can kill the Reliquary. Wait, they choose to keep the Brontodon. Okay, so we can play to where we know they're going to play a Brontodon and blow up a Reliquary, get back a Sandwing, and gain 3. They end up with 3 blockers total at 5 life. I mean, they're definitely not killing us, so we just draw some cards off of the Bloodfast now then. And try to just dump enough nonsense on this board to kill them through a wide board state. Come on. Come on, top deck. If I draw another card now, I'm not even going to cast it currently. Because I need the mana up for Temple. I guess I don't need the mana up for Temple. And I do have a 1-drop in white I could hit. Yeah, let's do it. Hit another Necromage. It's actually not bad with Bartolome on board. Maybe I crack the Necromage to widen the board? Could that be a thing? With our opponent at functionally 5 life and 3 blockers? Why is this game so hard? Why is Magic the Gathering so hard? Okay. If I have 2 funguses and they have 3 blockers, they obviously block Bartolome and they double block Ossisaur, so they take 3 damage total off of 2 fungi and a gnome. Oh, I obviously am not supposed to draw a card right now. I would go to 0. Do I sack a Necromage, though? I don't think I do. I mean, I guess 2 1/1 attackers are moderately better than 1 3/1 attacker here. I'm gonna go for it. I'm done thinking. It's too hard. We have the world's largest Bartolome to sack to Temple of Aklazotz if they somehow find a way to try to hit us for lethal. I can just sack Bartolome and gain like 10 life if I sack my whole board. Although if I end up sacking my whole board, at that point I'm losing regardless. But that is the backup plan if things go really wrong with this attack, is that we can sack Bartolome. Okay. This looks good to me. They're going to sack Bronodon to get the flyer back here. That is going to be the play. This is fine. Is it better to sack the Osiosaur to gain 4 than it is to kill this scout? It's 6 life, then I don't have to sack something next turn. Oh, Lord Almighty. If I have to sack something next turn, it's going to have to be Bartolome, right? Because if I just pass, after they get this Sandwing back, they're hitting me for 3 in the sky guaranteed. So if I just gain 1, which is the only thing I could gain with a bunch of 1 toughness creatures, I die. So if I don't sack Osiosaur right now, I'll have to sack Bartolome next turn. I mean, I guess I don't do anything if they don't do anything. If they don't pop the Reliquary, they're dead, so I'm not going to do it till they pop the Reliquary. The problem with doing it this way is now I am going to die if they top deck removal. I still feel like this is the best bet. Guaranteeing I can keep Bartolome around. Right, they attack all, I take 5 because I block the 6/6. So they are at legitimate actual 2 life now with no life gain on board. It's an insanely good draw. I mean, it doesn't kill me like a removal spell would, but 2 more blockers and another flyer is really, really good. If they attack with 1 creature, they're dead, though. On board, right? Because they have 4 blockers and I'd have 6 attackers. Yeah, they can't attack right now. So they threaten to attack back. So I have 1 more attacker than they have blockers, so I just dig for removal here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1 removal spell kills them, but I have 2 extra card draws to go for it. And still 3 removal spells in this deck. 9 life, or 9 cards. 1/3 of these cards are removal spells. I guess one of them only hits tapped creatures, but still. Okay, that's it, right? That's the game? Oh my god, Lancelot. Four blockers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 attackers. I'm gonna kill Kutsil to send a message. Send in the squadron. Hit for 2? Oh, okay. That was 1 game of Magic the Gathering. And that game is going to put us to, what, 3 wins? I feel like I have lived through several lifetimes, and I have seen behind the veil right now. So I have no idea where I am or what's going on. But yes, that is the third victory. We are 3-1 now. I don't even know what to say about that. That was just crazy. That was a long, wild game with tons of nonsense going on. We are 3-1 heading into round number 5. Here we are for game 5. We're 3-1 here. I'm going to keep this hand basically like a mull to 6 until we hit a plains. But once we do, we just have all the interaction in the world, and we get to see exactly what we need to save it for. With Deep Cavern Bat and Visage of Dread in the hand. I'm going to go for the Visage first. I don't really want to play Deep Cavern Bat into like 2 removal spells, but it looks like they have 0 removal. Oh wait, no, they have a Petrify. But Petrify on Deep Cavern Bat is just good for me. So they've got the God that can keep coming back over and over. We probably have to make them discard that, right? They don't have the double blue for it, but I would really rather not have to play against that. Yeah, and everything else is 4 or 5 mana, so we just exile something else with Deep Cavern Bat. Yep. Get rid of the God, exile something else. They top deck the 2-drop. Would have probably just hit the 2-drop so they didn't have a good play this turn, but it is what it is. Sometimes opponents can just top deck out of your Thoughtseizes, as we said last game. Now they get to scry into their mana to cast the rest of their hand off of this Sunscribe. No blocks for sure. They did naturally hit the 4th land here. All I've got is removal, so we're going to start using it. Let the Sunscribe keep going. We'll kill a 4-3 or a 4-4 over that. Or a Warden, I would rather kill that. That can get a bunch of counters on it over time and turn into a big flying vigilance threat, which is horrifying. Bitter Triumph can just straight destroy anything, so I'll just go for the Join the Dead here. It's also more efficient on a later turn to cast it alongside another spell. Warscribe is a horrifically bad draw. We'll probably just discard that to the Bitter Triumph, honestly. Still keeping the land, so I have that option to discard to Bitter Triumph. Just don't think that'll be what we end up doing. So here's the Scry 3 from their 4-4. We probably do just have to kill the 4-4 to buy time, because as soon as we find a plains, we have 2 more removal spells that we have access to. So we just use the Bitter Triumph to buy the time to make it to the plains to cast those. This is maybe a little greedy, but I'm going to try to keep this Warscribe. I mean, I can also just take the 3, but I feel like I'm taking enough damage to not really want to lose extra life here. And I think a 5th Swamp's pretty redundant with all these white spells in hand. Okay, that's a very good draw. Seek 2 vampires. Find the Legion Consecrator. And a Bartolome, but the Consecrator's the cool card. They can petrify it, but I can sack it to a Bartolome to still get its death trigger. So our deck plays really well against Petrify. There's that. It's pretty sweet. They have found a Waterwind Scout, so they do have a flyer to stop the Deep Cavern Bat from doing stuff and things. Okay. Still looking for those white sources. We have no plays here. We can't attack or block with anything right now. All right. There's the Malamet Warscribe for big damage here. We get on to 7. That is really unfortunate. I guess we just lose then. We're 17 cards deep. We did not find one of our 7 planes. That's really disappointing, because even if we hit it like this late in the game, where I hit it instead of the Cloud Guard, I think we're firmly... Not firmly, but we can stabilize from there. They were the starting players, so if we hit the planes that turn, we would have killed the War Scribe and gained 4, and stayed at 7 here off of this attack. Then we would Sawblades the Scout, and yeah, we would just really recover off of a planes even that late into the game. But now I have to chump and give them back the Cloud Guard, which means their board state is way too wide to matter. Yeah, rough stuff. I think this was a super reasonable keep. We had 1 white spell in the hand that only cost a single white mana. We've got 7 planes in the deck. We just didn't find one until 18 cards into the library. Yeah. Too late now. I can clear out 1 card and gain 4, but that is exactly dead. I Radiant Smite the Titan, go to 8 life, take 8 damage. Really sad one. 3 and 2 it is as we head into Game 6. Here we are for Game 6 with a much less reasonable keep in terms of monocolored hands, but the spells are way cooler. We've got the High Marshal, the Aspirant to get a counter on the bat. I'm going to keep it anyway. I'm going to send a message to Arena. If you're not going to give me a planes 18 cards deep, then give me one like 8 cards deep this game, please. Well, they didn't do it. Let's Deep Cavern Bat and see what's up with our opponent's hand. Oh my god, this thing is one of the most busted alchemy cards. If you attack with this thing and you play a single other artifact, then this thing spits out a map token and a 1/3 flyer that draws cards when it hits you every time it attacks. They've also got the rare Malcolm that's really good and threatens to block and trade with the Deep Cavern Bat and the Staunch Crewmate 2-for-1. This looks pretty unbeatable to me. I mean, the River Herald Scout is whatever, but any of these 3 2-drops is an insanely good play turn 2. And I just can't stop my opponent from doing one of them. I mean, yeah, these are just all cards I would consider S tier. I genuinely am at a loss. I don't know what I hit here. Well, we hit the concede button. I guess I clear out the flyer, but now the other one might be conjuring flyers. They just need to hit artifacts to go with it. There's the Navigator. They're hoping to hit the artifacts for it. Like, at least we were hitting our white source here, so I can block the Navigator so it only conjures 1 Thieving Magpie, but even doing it 1 time is nuts. 2 mana for a 2/1 that comes with a 1/3 flyer that draws a card and a map token? Absurd. They need, like, double Cogwork Wrestler for the High Marshal to not trade into Navigator here. Okay. Alright, we got around the Navigator. I don't think this triggers if the Navigator's not on board anymore. Maybe it does, though. Maybe they'll play an artifact and they will get the Magpie. That is a 2-mana artifact anyway, so they just use the map token. Alright. We're doing it. We're in this game for now. We found that white source right on time. We've got our temple going. I did not want to hit another land after flipping into the temple, sadly. Okay. Aspirant plus Bartolome it is. Yeah, now I really wish I had flipped into the blood fast. Yeah, you know what? With Deep Cavern Bat on board, I think that's just an actual punt. I was going to say, like, in hindsight, drawing an additional land here, we really don't need the temple that much, but I think with Deep Cavern Bat on board, I probably should have just gone for the Bloodfast initially, not even in hindsight. Just try to dig for some more cards here, because we are running out of gas, but just by virtue of being a blue-red artifact/pirates deck, their deck should be jammed full of 2-for-1s. So they'll have plenty of gas. Play the War Scribe and get a big attack in here, which is pretty sweet. Trade my 1-2 into their 2-3. Interesting. Now I trade my 1-2 and my Bartolome into their 2-3 and their 1-2. That feels worth it to me. Two-for-two trade. I guess if it's a 2-for-2 trade either way, I could sack the War Scribe to keep the Bartolome. And Bartolome is basically just going to be a War Scribe with an ability. Just doesn't have any abilities after it's dead. It's probably the line. 2-for-2, trade a War Scribe and an Aspirant into a Siren and a Scout. Now they Waylaying Pirates or Wayfaring Pirates Bartolome. Actually, no, they don't. They have no artifact left. Unless they have a 1-mana artifact here, they don't get to stun anything. So they play a 3-mana artifact, so they can stun later. Jam in for 3. Skullcap Snail's looking really nice here. Exile a card from their hand and make sure Bartolome's out of reach of dying to the crewmate. Exile the Waylaying Pirates. That means their other spell's pretty great here. It might be like a Braid. Be pretty gross. Cogwork Wrestler? That's not insane, is it? Actually, it is pretty dang good, because they can go for the double block here for 4 toughness. So I have to give them back the Malcolm if I want to keep the Bartolome. Well, then I just keep the bat and win with that. It's a 1-2 and a 3-1 versus a 2-2 flying lifelink. 2-2 flying lifelink wins that every time. Yeah, it's just a top deck war, and they need to draw considerably better than us to win. Because we have the threat to trade into their 3-1, so it's literally just a 2-2 flying lifelinker versus nothing, basically. If you counter out these 2 cards, did they top deck another Wrestler? I'm so over this format. Good draw. Bad draw. We still win this race, funnily enough. Pirates Landing, draw a card. There's the removal. So they kill Deep Cavern Bat. And they conjure something onto the battlefield. And they get the Malcolm back to hand. If I sack this, they don't conjure anything, so I guess I do that. Yeah, this is insane. Removal spell plus they conjure a 2-drop is what it would be. They conjure a Staunch Crewmate? 4 mana to kill my creature and play a crewmate to draw a card? I would hit landing 1 turn late. That is how my draws have been going here. If we do lose this, it was self-imposed, though. If we chose the Bloodfast to draw extra cards, I think we'd win this game. The Temple's been... I mean, we've been using the Temple. It just hasn't been very good. I probably just put Echo on the bottom anyway. So I believe I just sack it. Yeah, I mean, at least we've been using the Temple. But I think Bloodfast, the additional card draw we would have gotten off of it would have just actively won us the game. By now... But instead we got ourselves into a top deck war where we just drew much worse. Our opponent hit some really, really nice stuff a few turns in a row here. And now Malcolm gets to draw a card, discard a card every turn. To dig out of any mana flood they might get. Yeah, they finally drew the 6th land and immediately got to discard it to Malcolm to draw something else. And trigger a Scallywag to get a treasure. It's pretty solid time to draw the Saw Blades. 1 turn too late, but still pretty good. Man, they have really got a lot of nonsense on their board, though. But kind of just turns into a top deck war again. My deck doesn't have a lot of artifacts for flipping the Saw Blades. That's a problem. I don't actually have the 5/5 vehicle, which means it's not quite a top deck war. They're ahead. They can just attack with everybody. Multiple turns in a row. We can Necromage trade into the Hotfoot Gnome, but that's it. Then the Fungi don't do any blocking. They can get sacked to the Temple, though. Cloud Guard is a really good draw. A flyer is massive with our opponent at 9 life. Cash in a fungus for 1 damage? I don't think that's great. Hold the phone. This gives me my artifact. Cloud Guard's actually probably the literal best card in the entire deck to draw. That is so good. Now I have a 5/5 blocker on the ground. And if the Cloud Guard sticks around, that's our win condition. Just takes 3 swings. Ooh, boy. We are hitting some gas. That puts the Deep Cavern Bat back on board. Or the Iron Pot, or the High Marshal, if we want to get that blood fast. Or make up for previous mistakes. Oh, that is so sick. I like being able to pick something up at instant speed, so I think I'll do that. If anything, they're just going to concede. Oh my god, all right. Well, some really swingy games today. Some high variant stuff, some absolute nonsense, and some pretty long games too. For all the bad luck we're hitting early in some of these games, we are just hitting runner, runner, runner for excellent draws to wrap some of these up, and that gives us the 1,400 gems and 3-pack minimum, basically break-even point at 4 wins out of this draft no matter what. Really sweet stuff. We are now basically breaking even and at a positive win rate no matter what happens from here. But we'll see if we can't take it a little bit further and get in the money out of this draft. We are 4-2 heading into game number 7. Here we are now for game 7. We got both our colors. We got the really great Reconsecrator at 3 mana. Snap keep. Gotta hit a land or 2 here pretty soon. But if we can do that, we're doing great. Let's just Visage here and see what's up from our opponent. Black-green deck with a Bringer of the Last Gift. The sad part about the black-green archetype is even if I make them discard the Bringer, they're going to have several ways to bring it back from their graveyard to their hand, or even worse, directly to the board. So I think the best play in this matchup is to just get rid of the cheapest card. It could be to get rid of the Primordial Gnar since it discovers when it dies, but I can just save my Reliquary to deal with that. So I'm going to get rid of the Screaming Phantom. We're going to get rid of the cheapest card. Alright, 3 mana. Play the Reconsecrator. then they join the dead it before I can pick anything up from grave. They get a pretty clean 1-for-1 if that happens. And it forces them to spend their join the dead before I play a flyer, which is nice. I'm just gonna do it. Now they just go swamp join the dead. And then we get to get there with the Cloud Guard, hopefully. Alright, Forest Myco Tyrant. Okay! Well, that's cool with me. Now the Reconsecrator's guaranteed to do something. I get to put a 3/1 Screaming Phantom in my grave, which would be a great card to get back. X is the number of times they've descended. So they're going to try to play the Mineshaft Spider next turn and get 2 fungi. So we just reliquary that thing, I'm pretty sure. I guess I should have aspiranted pre-combat here to just buff the Reconsecrator. Yeah, because I'm probably just sacking the aspirant to exile the Micro Tyrant anyway. I guess since they've got the Join the Dead here for the Reconsecrator, maybe I do buff the aspirant and crack the Visage. Now let's keep as many threats on the current board as possible. Try to make this game go pretty fast against a green-black deck that's going to be trying to do some nasty late-game things with the Bringer. So let's focus on the early game rather than the late game. There's the Mineshaft Spider, no Join the Dead. Let us keep the Reconsecrator for now. But that's just because we don't have good attacks into the Spider. I guess that's the one big benefit of using the Aspirant to put a counter on the Reconsecrator. It makes it big enough to attack into the Spider. But the flaw is that if I do that, then they just Join the Dead the Reconsecrator, but then I get the 3/1 flyer anyway. I guess it was probably better to put the counter there. They do choose to mill too. Maybe I'm supposed to be playing like 14 lands, because I feel like we've been flooding so much today. It's actually absurd. Because we are on 16 lands. There's the 5th mana from our opponent. They're going to Join the Dead the Cloud Guard. Which is pretty fine. They already had the Spider to block it. Now we have the Deep Cavern Bats. Guess we can make sure the Bringer doesn't happen anytime soon. Yeah, just a Bringer and a Gnar. They have the 6th mana out of 8 for the Bringer. They play the Primordial Gnar. It's a 5/2, so it trades into Aspirant, then they discover. I think that's probably fine. Let's just get rid of the Bringer for now. And we need to hit our Deconstruction Hammer or something, or any of our removal spells to clear out the Spider. Bitter Triumph off the top, pretty good. Put the Bringer of the last gift back into their hand. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 mana. They're 1 mana away from just casting it. So rough to play around, because it's like, if I try to chump attack in, they can go for like good blocks to kill some of my creatures without losing theirs, and then just keep their board and not play the Bringer. I don't think I can really just do that here, right? Like if I attack all, they can kill Reconsecrator in the 1/1 without losing any creatures, and then they'll just not cast the Bringer if my graveyard's better than theirs. Which I guess it already is. They have 1 Capybara, and I've got a bunch of creatures. A bunch being 3, but 3 is still enough. I guess Attacking with Reconsecrator makes our graveyard way better than theirs, because we'll have a Reconsecrator in grave and they won't have the Capybara anymore. So even Chump attacking with the Reconsecrator could be solid. Although they'd probably just trade with Gnar, so they have something pretty decent in grave. I don't know. I'm getting a pretty massive headache. I played way too much Magic today. These are just monumentally long games. Send in the Gnar. Pretty cool with the Necromage trade here. Pretty cool with that too. Fungal Fortitude it is. They discover Ever-Flowing Well. That is really good right now. Try to fill more creatures into their grave. Draw another card, and they did hit another creature. Let's actually draw 2. There's the Deathcap Marionette again. Try to fill more creatures in that grave. Hit a Chupacabra Echo, which is insane. There's that Deconstruction Hammer I've been looking for. You know what's pretty awesome? We can put that Chupacabra Echo in our own grave. Actually, I'll take that, thank you. They take the trade, so we now have a Reconsecrator that'll come back if they cast the Bringer. So I think it's fine to just take the Chupacabra right now. They are out of flyers right now too, so even playing the Screaming Phantom's pretty good, or the Deep Cavern Bat. Any of these are pretty sweet too. Let's actually take the Screaming Phantom. You know what? No, let's make the 1/1 a 2/2 for trading into the Primordial Gnar. But I can use this to blow up the Ever-Flowing Well so they don't get the 8 permanent Myriad pools that can start copying creatures they play. Well, making their lands copy the creatures they play. I'm not going to pop it just yet, though, because the +1/+1 is still really nice. Alright, they hit their own Screaming Phantom, so now we're just trading in the sky, which is sad. Oh, they're just gonna do it? I think this is better for me than it is for them. But I don't know. I guess Chupacabra Echo is significantly worse once the creatures hit the board. It's -3/-3. Still okay. Kill the Mycoid here. It's just the better version of the Capybara. Each player sacks 2 creatures. That's just good for me, right? Most of the time. So we get rid of the Skull Taker. There's a Saw Blades. I was about to say the only real issue here is that they have a 6/6 flyer, and now that's not an issue. Because we've got a Saw Blades. Yeah, Saw Blades plus block with a Cloud Guard will do it. I don't really get to attack at all. Oh, hold up. I need to blow up this Ever-Flowing Well now, probably. Yeah, the hammer is much less helpful now that they have such sturdy blockers, regardless. Although it's not like the Ever-Flowing Well is that insane. Now that we've got this wide board state of blockers. We just have to lose a gnome whenever they play a creature. There's too many freaking hard decisions in Magic. So tired of it. It's probably still better to kill that thing than it is to keep a +1/+1 hammer around. Cosmium Confluence. grab some caves, make one of them a 3/3. All right. Promising veins. Well, they only had one left. So it could have been a 6/6. But they miscounted the caves. Right, we clear this thing out of here, but then they might recur it from the grave. But then still anyone's game because we both got massive graveyards. Or we both will have massive graveyards. So Ruin Lurker Bat. If we find a way to deal with the Mineshaft Spider, we're getting there in the sky. Got a Deconstruction Hammer to exile to the Saw Blades. Feels like the play. Because that will not come back if they manage to reanimate the Bringer from grave. Am I just sitting here forever? Until they mill out because they have 11 cards left? I really hope not. I really hope this is not another 45-minute game. But that might be our best game plan against this 3/4 reach. I guess I can chump attack with Reconsecrator. When it attacks, I get the trigger. So if they kill it when it attacks, I get whatever I want onto the battlefield. Do we want to get really stupid? I could just... I could make a 3/1 version of their Bringer in my graveyard. And then when they kill this on the attack, my Bringer comes back and it brings the Consecrator back, so I keep trying to exile more from their grave. But if I do that right now, they're going to discover and have 4 creatures left. I will have 1, 2, 3, 4 creatures left. We'll put the Skull Taker back in their hand when the Cavern Bat dies. If I want to make things really, really stupid, I can. I don't think that's super advantageous to me yet. Maybe if I can get some chump attacks with some other creatures first, that'll be really worth it. So why don't we, like, send these two in, and if they manage to both die, then, like, okay, we'll do the Bringer thing next turn. Or maybe I can get some chump blocks, and that also helps. This is so dumb. Alright, they're dying. That's good. Because they're dying and our opponent's creatures are staying on board. They're getting another land and grave, but that's whatever. Also get to scry this land away. Is it time to enter Magical Christmas Land? Of utter nonsense? I think it is. I don't really want to attack with more than the Reconsecrator because I don't want to end up killing any other creatures on board. So stupid. Oh, is it an if you cast it trigger? It is. Well, this isn't as stupid as I wanted it to be. Man, this does mean that we now just have to, like, mill them out. They have 10 cards left. Guess I'm just picking up the Chupacabra Echo. Since it's if it enters the battlefield, period. This is if it enters the battlefield, if you cast it, you do the thing. But I won't have cast it. I just return it. Alright, this is still solid. We just kill the Mineshaft Spider then. See what they discover. Discover a Whale of the Forgotten. Oh, that's really, really good. Because they get to double it up. They get to bounce a card and draw a card? Okay, that's not that insane. Bouncing one of my cards is good, though. Bounce the Deep Cavern Bat and recast something, or bounce the Reliquary to cast their legend. Yeah, bounce the Reliquary it's going to be. And make me discard it. Really nice. Beginning of your end step. Create 1/1s equal to how much they descended. They have 6 cards left in their library, so they can't really afford to descend much more. I think I'm killing the Mineshaft Spider here to let my flyers in. If they have that 2/5 flyer that lets them put cards from their grave back on the bottom of their library, they are going to win this game. If they don't, we are going to win this game. It is coming down to mill in the end here. Looks quite likely. I mean, I'm hitting for 2 a turn now and gaining 2 a turn, but it's not going to kill them by the time they mill out. It's going to take 7 turns. Didact Echo draws them another card, gets them down to 3 cards left. But it does block our flyers, so we're back to fully on the mill plan. Send in the Cave Worm. We are going for the block, right? They will have descended once for the Myco Tyrant, but still definitely a block. Another Deep Cavern Bat. See exactly what's going on over there. Tithing Blade, Vantasaur. Vantasaur's way better. Targeted removal and a naturalize. And or a naturalize, I should say. Well, it's not and or, it's just or. You can't get both of the cards. Brood Rage Mycoid, they're down to 2 cards in their deck. There's the Tithing Blade to get rid of a fungi. A fungus, a singular fungus. Send in the Didact Echo, we go down to 19. Bartolome. Pass. 1 card left in their deck. That one was a land. We'll see what the final card is next turn, but it has to be the card that lets them put stuff from grave back on top of their library, or on bottom of their library, but the bottom of the library and the top of their library are about to be the same thing. They actually already are. Okay, oh, there's the Bitter Triumph, so that card won't even... I mean, it would still be really good, because they'd still put a few cards back before I can kill it. But it wouldn't, like, permanently stop them from milling out anymore. And they don't have that card, so final turn, no cards in their deck. Hit us with a Didact Echo. And then lose to having no cards in their library. That is going to be the 5th victory. That is the determining win to see if we are in the money over breaking even, and we are. We are officially at 1,600 gems and some packs as the prizes out of this 1,400 gem event. Really, really nice spot to be. But we'll see if we can't keep it rolling as we head into round number 8. Here we are for game number 8 with an unfortunately unkeepable hand. I would love to keep Bartolome into Legion Reconsecrator, but we have no black sources. We really don't consistently get there, and we have no action without a black source. So we have no time to dirtle around missing lands. We won't be casting anything, so have to take the mulligan here. This hand is just as bad. There's one skullcap snail, which is not a game plan. And even if we hit the white source, I think this hand's definitely weaker than the last one if we draw perfectly. I think it's got to be another mulligan here, and we're just going to end up keeping a monocolored hand, I guess. Have to keep the 5-card hand, and now I just wish I kept the 7. But some really rough luck on these mulligans in round number 8. Really disappointing way to start it off. I think I keep the Reconsecrator combos, go for the Aspirant turn 2, so there's something maybe to have engraved for Reconsecrator. If we do immediately hit the swamp, probably going to have to argue for the Bloodfast just to try to get out of the card disadvantage we're naturally going to be at with the double mulligan on the play. So let's just play the Arguel immediately and get the Bloodfast on the board. There's a Poison Dart Frog from our opponent. Jam into that thing. Here's Arguel. Oh yeah, we don't get the Bloodfast till it dies. Keep forgetting about that. Green, white, and blue, and that's a turn 3 Deep Fathom Echo, an incredible card advantage bomb. A 4/4 that explores every turn to draw them additional lands and get extra counters and surveil. Well, that's horrific, and now we have no attacks. Alright. Well, we just went from down 2 cards to down infinite. We're down 3 now that they've drawn off of the Echo. But it's just going to keep getting worse. With a card advantage bomb on our opponent's side. There's an Iron Paw Aspirant, buff up the Dart Frog. Find a Cogwork Progenitor, which is another excellent card advantage bomb. At the end of your end step, if you exile another artifact in their graveyard, they can keep seeking artifacts out of their deck, making them 1/1s. So if you have a bunch of the non-creature artifacts, the card is insane. There's the Cogwork Progenitor. Deep Fathom Echo's drawn an additional land. They're now up like 4 cards. Find a Cloud Guard, so we have 1 threat to be attacking with and a really wide board state for the War Scribe. So the Cloud Guard trades... Never mind. I'll say the Cloud Guard trades into the Dart Frog, clears a path for future flyers. Not anymore, now it just gets hit by a Saw Blades, which is also a 2-for-1. It's going to kill my creature and crew... Well, become a vehicle to be crewed later, maybe. Alright, I mean, they're up a million cards. I'm just going to cash this in and see what happens. Quicksand Whirlpool, the Reconsecrator. It's already pretty disappointing. They're going to go for the Death Touch trade into the Cloud Guard. Go for the kill on the Arguel with their 6/6. It's going to take 11 here, go to 7. I mean, they could probably afford to. They've got another removal spell coming up with the Saw Blades. And so many cards to toy around with. Alright, they're going to go for the double block trade on the Echo. Yep. Fair enough. They are down to 11, and we'll get a Bloodfast. Try to draw some cards here, ideally. Deep Fathom Echo going absolutely ham. It is a 7/7 now. we are never going to get through. Another land for us, so let's draw some cards. Another land for us, so let's draw some cards. Bartolome, but I don't have the white source up. Yeah, I could have tapped that better if I didn't auto-tap it. Auto-tapper had... Actually, no, auto-tapper didn't have to hold the black up in the end. It just did because we had a Bloodfast and no white spells in hand. If I had played my land preemptively, it might have held up white-black in the end. Yep. I should have manually done some mana, do a tiny bit of mana thinking here. Rather than just auto-tapping through that. Archaeologists, which is very nice here, pick up an artifact from their grave, put it into their hand. Deep Fathom Echo triggers again. It is now an 8/8, and they're top decking another removal spell next turn, which can kill anything for 6 mana, can exile any creature. Doesn't have to target our tapped stuff. With Bloodfast needing us to lose life to draw the cards, I'm going to go for the chump here, so I have a little more room to draw more cards. Find a Necromage. Necromage is pretty nice with the Bartolome. So I can Bartolome Necromage and have 2 mana up to Bloodfast still. Seems pretty good to me. Send in the War Scribe, it gets rid of their tapped creature removal spell. Yep. Obviously, they're going to cast the Revealed Saw Blades, but that gets it out of way on a relatively unimportant creature. Just a 4/3 body with no abilities. No flying, and no sack ability mainly. Watley's Final Strike. It's just more removal on top for our opponent. And they're going to use the Deep Fathom Echo's ability to make it an Archaeologist, which doesn't change anything. It's still a 4/4 base stats. It is neat, though. 14 life. Guess I forced them to cash in the Quicksand Whirlpool here. Because the 1/1 on the 1/1 fungi that just can't block are just useless. Not completely, but enough that it's better to make Bartolome a 5 toughness card, force them to spend the Whirlpool right now, than it is to keep them around just to like gain 1 life off of Aquazotz later. Oh, they're just gonna let it happen. Okay. Oh, that's really nice then. They don't cash in the Whirlpool here. There's Progenitor. They don't have an artifact engraved for that, so it's still not drawing them any cards, unless they want to exile the Saw Blades to draw a card. But if they do that, since they've seeked a card, their library will shuffle, I think? I'm actually not sure. Alchemy's just weird. Dusk Landing. No life gain right now. Let's see, does Seeking shuffle? Seeking does shuffle your library. Alright. I was going to say, it would make sense if it did, because it's pulling something out of your deck, and every time you do that in paper, you shuffle your library. But on Arena, technically, it wouldn't have to shuffle. Alright, anyways, Dusk's Landing with no life gain. We can't seek 2 off of it. They're down to 11, but they have the Whirlpool, so I can't hit them with Bartolome. They'll just exile it. Can Reliquary away the Echo, stacking the Aspirant, I guess. Yeah, I guess I just draw a card off this. Alright, not a good one. Draw a little more before we decide what to do. I really should be playing like 14 lands like that. But I guess it's because we dig so far through our deck so often, we are going to see most of our lands. Well, this is all we have. We can Reliquary the Echo, and then they just exile Bartolome, and we just die. Basically, that's where we're at. And they can exile Bartolome whether or not he's tapped. But they haven't done it yet, so maybe they think they can't do it unless he's tapped. Yeah, I was gonna say they could have just done that last turn and not lost their attacking creature. When does this transform? At the beginning of our upkeep? Okay, so I can't just like try to put myself to low enough to flip this. And I don't have the mana to do it anyway. All right. Reflection Net. So that goes to their hand. And they've got a removal spell as a backup now. This player just drafted every removal spell, and that's the deck, basically. We drafted every land, and that's the deck. There's a Necromage. Deep Cavern Bat. Alright, well, we play this, and then they net in response while it's on the stack to kill it. If they let this ability resolve, they drew the Final Strike anyway. They shuffled out of Watley's Final Strike and then drew it anyway. That is some solid RNG. Oh my god, it's just a double removal spell. Wait, so they... The random artifact they seeked was a removal spell, and they top-decked the removal spell that they shuffled off the top of their library, all in the span of one turn. So I Necromage and then they exile it and we take 2 and then they kill us next turn. I guess we take 3 because they can make the Progenitor a Necromage. Yep, I play this, it gets exiled, and we lose. That is finally freedom from the Lost Caverns of Ixalan Alchemy Draft. This was a pretty spicy deck to start it off with. I wish the gameplay was not as grindy as it was and as long as it was, but I guess a lot of that was just because the way that our deck works with all of the death triggers and sacrifice stuff, like it grinds out those long games. Certainly could have played it a bit better in some of those games, flipping into the Bloodfast early in that other one instead of the Temple. But I think we actually ended up winning that game in the end. It just took forever. Maybe I'm wrong on that one. There's certainly some games I think we could have won that we didn't end up doing so maybe we could have been at 6-2 or 6-3 instead of 5-3, something like that. Don't know if we'd quite make it to a 7-win run, but I suppose it might be possible with perfect plays. Still pretty happy with this deck. I'm really happy with how I drafted. We ended up with a very interesting pile of cards that's going to play quite differently to anything else that we could play, because when are you ever going to get double Reconsecrator and the High Marshal together again? Those kinds of alchemy synergies, especially with the double Bartolome to be sacking the Reconsecrators and getting their triggers at instant speed. There were a lot of really fun little alchemy combos going on in the deck, and I think it was a pretty good start, a pretty good showing from the Lost Caverns of Ixalan Alchemy drafts. But that will do it for today's draft. We'll grab our 1,600 gems, our 4 packs, and that is going to end today's video. As always, I'd like to thank my patrons and YouTube members for their support, as well as you for watching this video. If you enjoyed this video and you're interested in seeing more, you can always like, comment, and subscribe to tell the YouTube algorithm to send you some more in your recommended feed. If you'd like to catch me live, you can check out the Twitch channel in the link in the description below. And if you'd like to support the channel directly, you can check out the Patreon link in the description below. But other than that, as always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again soon for some more Magic Arena.